Waterhouse could place you in front of Lady of Shalott and make you feel the weight of her choice. He could render her with such precision and such care that the emotional truth of her situation becomes unavoidable. What he could not do is make you complicit in it. You stand in front of the canvas and you witness. The distance between you and the subject, however small Waterhouse manages to make it feel, remains. You're always on the outside of the painting looking in. And also, the point at which you're looking, there's nothing you can do. It's already been done, the choice has already been made, you're just witnessing them in the moments after, when it has become inevitable. But the fight with Maria closes the distance in a way no painting can, as Watson is always excited to talk about.
Yeah, admittedly, Bloodborne is one of those games that has so much rich lore and so much that you learn to understand about these characters, especially with Maria and some of the lore that you do discover afterwards about her. It all adds up into this story being told within the fight. So, in the case for Maria, when you enter the astral clock tower and she rises from her chair, you're not a witness. You are the event she has been waiting for. Everything the clock tower represents, the self-imposed exile, the long isolation, the guilt carried without resolution, all arrives at this endpoint because you walked through the door. Waterhouse could paint the women at the threshold. From Software put the threshold inside a room and handed you the key and said, "Good luck, sucker."
Yeah, it gets you actively involved in something that is still inevitable. There's only two ways that this could end. You win or she does. Think about what the fight structure actually asks of you. The first phase, Maria, at her most composed and technical, requires you to learn her. Not defeat her, because there's two more phases, but you have to learn. Learn how she fights, learn the way she moves. The Rakuyo's patterns are precise and readable if you are paying attention. And paying attention is what the phase demands. Because when they're moving very quick, very fast, very effective, and efficient, that fight can end very quickly if you're not paying attention. You are being asked to see her clearly before anything else happens. See who she was at the height of her power and skill. This is not accidental. From Software designed a boss encounter that begins with an act of witness. The same act Waterhouse was trying to produce in the viewers standing in front of his canvas.
And as I'm sure everybody will be surprised, the Maria fight is one of the most evocative staged battles for Bloodborne. And as such, even the second phase now is where the contract gets changed. When Maria burns her hands to escalate the fight, she's now doing something to herself, not to you. The fire is self-directed first and outward second. You are no longer simply learning her. You are watching someone choose to hurt themselves in order to keep fighting, and you have to accept that you're the reason they are making that choice. The painting cannot do this. Waterhouse can show you Saint Eulalia after the fact. The body in the snow, the testimony of what was held and at what cost. He cannot make you the cost. The Maria fight can and does. By the second phase, you're not observing her self-punishment. You're the occasion for it.
Now some of that weight is done because of you, and you get to see it in its entirety. Paintings can be beautiful and stunning, and what Waterhouse did is amazing and will forever amaze me. But it can only show a moment. And I also feel like it would not have been socially acceptable to show the full torture scene, but also might have been socially iffy showing a half-naked body laying in the snow, but artists can get away with stuff. Seeing how different mediums play with the same concept is fascinating.
Agreed.
The third phase completes the movement. It's the end of the trilogy. It's 3 arcs, a 3-act structure, power of 3. 3 is an important number. Her blood in the air around you, her body fully weaponized against itself, and you are still there, still pressing forward. Because the game requires it, you can't leave. You're in this fight. And she's going all out. She's giving it everything. This is where the interactive medium does something that no static image in the history of art has been able to do with this kind of subject. It makes you want to finish it. To have it over, to have it done, to just end her misery and the pain she is putting herself in and the pain she has already been through. Waterhouse can make you feel the tragedy of his women, and he did. He can't make you the agent of it, though. The Maria fight does both, and it does them simultaneously, so that by the time she falls and speaks her last words, the grief you feel is not the clean grief of a witness, it is the complicated grief of a participant, and the regret that this couldn't go another way. You can't save her because she's not there to be saved. She is there to protect or to be slain.
And what I feel is the key difference between Waterhouse and an interactive medium like this is not only are you present in the moment, you now have to also face the aftermath or even the consequences of your actions. And with Maria, her final words are worth sitting with here. She does not curse you. She does not rage. She does not beg or simper. What she says carries the same quality of exhausted clarity that Waterhouse found in his women at their thresholds. A person who's come to the end of something they have been holding for a very long time, and finally, at whatever cost, can once and for all finally put it down. The game gives you her death as a kind of release, but it does not let you receive it cleanly either. You are the one who provided it. That ambiguity is not something Waterhouse could have built into his canvas. It requires a medium where the viewer makes choices that affect the meaning of what they're seeing.
This is what games can do that painting cannot, that photography, that books cannot. There's something about the interactive element that adds something to it that you don't get in other forms of media. Going back to seeing how painting versus photography versus drawing versus writing, all like the different mediums in which you can tell a story and embrace your creativity. You can do so many different things with all of them, and some things it might be a little bit more challenging to do in one versus the other, but seeing how they all accomplish something and make you feel something is beautiful. It does not mean that games are better than painting. It means they're capable of a specific thing that painting is not, placing the audience inside the moral geometry of the work rather than in front of it. You become a part of it. You are an active participant. Some games give you more of like a blank slate character to play as, so you can put more of yourself into that character, which would make things like this have more of an impact and make you think harder. Waterhouse spent his career trying to close the distance between his subjects and his viewers using beauty and composition and the quality of threshold attention to make the women in his paintings feel present and real and impossible to dismiss. From Software closed that distance completely by making you the person Maria has been waiting for in the clock tower, the final consequence of the choice she made at the fishing hamlet, arriving, at last, through the door she never locked. Now I'm kind of wondering what kind of stories Waterhouse might have told if he lived in the time of video games.
Huh.
Seeing more stories of tragic women explored in ways where not only are you witnessing the choice and the cost of that choice and the inevitability of their final moments, and how he would continue to explore the beauty and the power of the women making those choices.
I think he definitely do some interesting stuff, storytelling that, well, at the very least would definitely make some video games a lot more interesting.
Yeah, and would make players cry, but in a good way.
I definitely do feel his niche would definitely be in the From Software world. So Bloodborne, Elden Ring, Dark Souls.
I could also potentially see him working in a more whimsical space as well, combining the tragedy and finality of making those life-altering decisions even in a world that is beautiful and soft and delicate, but the harshness sometimes that people need to embody to survive and to do what needs to be done.
Having somebody who could definitely do that range of storytelling would make it very interesting.
Also, very colorful. Those games would be very colorful.
Oh yeah. There would not be a lack of depth to the artwork, I could say that for sure.
Nope, on a number of levels.
We're going to wrap this up with the conclusion of what the clock tower keeps. There is a moment near the end of the Maria fight that is easy to miss if you are, like everyone else who has fought her, focused on surviving and not eating it. In the third phase, when her blood is in the air around you and her movements have reached their most desperate and committed, she's at her most beautiful, not despite what is happening, but because of it. Every layer has now been stripped away, and what remains is simply a person giving everything they have left, with complete precision and a complete acceptance of what this moment is. Whether it's penance, retribution, compassion. Waterhouse spent his career trying to paint that quality in his own subjects. He found it in women at the water's edge, in snow-covered courtyards, in shallow pools with poison curling through the water and a freaky monster underneath. From Software found it in a clock tower at the edge of a nightmare, and then they made you stand inside it.
How nice of them to make you spend so much time staring into the abyss while making it extremely and abundantly clear why staring into the abyss is a bad thing.
Oh yeah. Bloodborne definitely encouraged the abyss stared back, and you probably should not like what it's suggesting.
Indeed, though I haven't played it, I'm just assuming, but do you get to make a positive difference in the world? I don't know if you can necessarily save the world, but you can leave it a little better than you found it.
Yes.
You help some people find peace. You help remove some of the nightmares. So maybe one day that world can be saved.
There is a kind of an interesting pattern of how the Bloodborne game ended. You could, in fact, end the nightmare by defeating the ancient found within the village. You could even ascend to becoming your own great one and possibly changing how that world operates. Or you could even wake up from the nightmare and be a hunter no more.
I imagine that would be difficult to choose, and each one difficult to achieve in their own way. But there is hope. You just have to choose and stick with your choice, no matter the consequences or the cost to yourself.
Precisely. And I do enjoy the fact that the more interesting endings are your hunter choosing to rebel against the order, rebel against the creator of the nightmare, and instead of choosing to let everyone remain trapped within this nightmare, but release them.
I would release them. Whatever they've done, I'm sure that they have suffered enough. They have paid their penance, they have paid their dues, they have spent how many centuries regretting their life choices. I would choose to let them go. I would choose to let them be. The nightmare doesn't need to be there anymore. And I imagine that would also be a hard choice, and you'd be extremely unpopular and probably giving up a lot of hopes and dreams to do this, because if the Order doesn't want you to do it, you're going to be in trouble when you do.
Oh yeah, especially considering some of the Order does include the Eldritch Great Ones. Yeah, they tend to hold a grudge.
Oh, I bet. And they like to make people suffer for very, very long periods of time. Case in point, the fishing hamlet.
Yup.
What Waterhouse understood And what the Maria encounter confirms 5 centuries later is that beauty and culpability are not opposites. Neither is being beautiful and being deadly, being dangerous, having that elegance, but also having an air of monstrosity like Lady Maria did. They do not cancel each other out. The Lady of Shalott is not beautiful in spite of her choice to turn around, to look at the real world, to go out into the real world, even though it will cost her everything. And we see her as she is going to try and find Lancelot, the man she saw who made her look. She is beautiful in the same gesture as her choice. The looking and the luminosity are the same act. And what makes the painting devastating is that Waterhouse refuses to separate them. We don't get to see how she died. We don't know if she ever got to see what she was looking for. But she got to die out in the world and on her own terms. So there's some beauty in that. And we also never get to know how or why she became cursed to forever be stuck in a tower, unable to view the world outside of a mirror. I still stand by she didn't deserve that, whatever she did. Maria is not a tragic figure in spite of what she did at the fishing hamlet, which was mostly standing by and not doing anything, as people did horrible things and then deciding to basically become the stone keeping the chaos at bay. She is who she is because of it. The clock tower and the composure and the grace under the fight's final pressure, all shaped by the things she carried and kept. The beauty is in the record of the weight. I imagine she probably spent centuries going over, what if I had done this? What if I have done this? Could I have stopped this? If I had spoken up and done something, could I have saved them? But she'll never know. And now she is no more.
And that is the interesting point, because you don't only have to face Maria in that moment, you are the consequences of it as well, which makes for one heck of an adventure, especially since this is getting to the end of that particular story. The pre-Raphaelite tradition that Waterhouse worked inside believed that art should return to a rawness and sincerity that academic painting had polished away. And what they found when they went looking for that rawness was women in myth, women at thresholds, women whose inner lives were large enough and serious enough to carry the full weight of what the tradition wanted to say. From Software went looking for the same thing in a different medium and found it in the same place. A woman alone in a sealed space, a weapon she could not bring herself to keep, a choice that defined everything that came after it, and a final encounter that asks you not just to defeat her, but to witness her completely, beauty and act and consequences all held in the same frame, and none of it resolved, but all of it's true.
A thought that I just had about, yes, these women that we've talked about are extraordinary in more than a few ways, but I think part of what makes them so legendary, so memorable, their stories or what we know, is because they just let it out. They embraced who they are. They lived as themselves. I don't think they're the only people that have more inside of them, that have inner lives that are large enough and serious enough. I think a lot of people have that. I mean, maybe not everyone, but everyone's got an inner life, things that no one else can see, that no one else can know about. And sometimes it's in embracing that and choosing to embody that and let the world see that, as terrifying as that can be. That is what makes people legendary. That is what makes people heroes, even if they don't feel heroic and even if they have a tragic ending. And that's part of why these stories and the art and the games, and I could probably think of some books that have similar figures, they stick with you because of that, because you can't look away. And inspires people to make similar works, to share and spread that inspiration, and to try and live that themselves. Like Kawasaki, She put women like this on wood panels and let the grain of the material become part of their skin, making them otherworldly, feeling like they are neither here nor there. They are elsewhere, they are coming, but they are here and they can see you. Roan put them on buildings that let the city's decay become part of their testimony as their face and their art continues to stare at you, as the buildings continue to crumble underneath them, pieces falling off. That just adds to the art. Waterhouse put them in boats, in courtyards, and shallow water, and asked the viewer to look without looking away. From Software put one in a clock tower, and handed you a key, and asked you to be the ending her story was always moving towards. She was waiting for you. She had been waiting for a long time, and when it was over, she could finally put all of it down and move on and find peace.
That is what I always kind of believed matched Maria for the end of that battle in Bloodborne, is she got to let everything out, and at the end, she finally got that peace she's desperately wanted.
And I'm so grateful that she got that in the end, and I stand by my assertion that she got a happy afterlife.
At least for her, the hunt finally ended. And there's another piece in this series that looks at Lady Maria through a different lens entirely. Gustav Klimt's gold and ornament and the weight of beauty as constructed surface. That piece and this one are looking at the same person and finding completely different truths, which is perhaps the most honest thing that can be said about her. Maria is large enough to hold both readings. So it turns out is the tradition of painting women that stretches from the pre-Raphaelites forward and into the walls of contemporary cities and the rendered spaces of modern games. The conversation is still going. Waterhouse started something he did not finish, and it is still being finished one clock tower at a time.
Guess this is a good time to ask the listeners, what examples of this have you seen? Where have you seen the inspiration and the metaphorical clock towers brought about by the work of Waterhouse and the other members of the pre-Raphaelite movement? I'd be curious to see it, curious to talk about it, and just forever grateful to be part of the show, because it makes you think.
Woo!
You have been listening to an unexpected art lesson about John William Waterhouse. If you like what we're doing, you can follow us on social media and join the conversation over at An Unexpected Art Lesson on Threads, Blue Sky, and Substack. And you can also support us over on Patreon. Get early access to episodes and other fun things at patreon.com/anunexpectedartlesson.